Thank you so much, Scott, and hello, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. We are really excited about this program, excited that you are interested in the program, and we're hoping to provide as much technical assistance as we can as we head into the deadline on October 5th. So our agenda for today is first, we're going to go over the program for those of you who might have just heard about the program in a little bit of at a high level. Then we're going to go over some of the frequently asked questions that we've been receiving in our inbox and otherwise. Third, we're going to go over how to sign up for EDGE. And fourth, we're going to go over our eligible and service area template. And then finally, we're going to leave plenty of time at the end for question and answer. So please drop your questions into the chat as I go through this presentation, and we will try to get to as many as we can. And if I don't get to your question today, send it to recompete@eda.gov, and I'll be sure to answer it as soon as possible. So we're just going to start by talking briefly about what this program is. And at a very high level, Scott said this is a $200 million investment in distressed communities across the country. And we're specifically targeting those communities where the prime age employment rate significantly trails the national average. The funding is being deployed through a two-phase competition. Right now we're in phase one, and then this winter we're going to move into phase two. And I'll talk about those phases in a bit. So this competition is open to a variety of entities. As you look through this list, you'll understand that it's open almost to any public entity. It is not open to private corporations or firms, but it is open to any sort of government entity, nonprofits, economic development districts, or even a consortium or partnership of the above. I also want to highlight the fact that universities and colleges are almost always eligible to apply as long as they are a public entity. They should be able to classify under one of these. If you're unsure of whether you're an eligible entity, we're always happy to work with you to help you figure out if you're eligible. So this program comes with very specific geographic eligibility criteria. The eligibility criteria is laid out actually in the law itself that created the program. And it's based on two things in particular. Number one, the prime age employment rate in your community. And then for some communities, we call them local communities, it's based also on the per capita median income level in your area. What we suggest to all folks who are interested in this program is to go to our map, which is available at eda.gov/recompete. Put in your address, put in your neighborhood, and you should be able to understand whether your community is in eligible geography. We really are trying to target these funds at communities that need it the most. And that's why this program was designed the way it was, with specific eligibility criteria for geography. So use our map and take a look at whether your community is eligible. And again, if you're confused, shoot us an email. I'm always checking, and I'm happy to explain whether your geography is eligible. I'll send you screenshots. I'll send you an Excel file to really dig into your eligibility. So now we'll just briefly talk about the two phases. Right now, we are in phase one. Phase one started in June, and applications are due on October 5th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. So once again, we are 1 month out. There's still plenty of time to submit an application for this program, and we hope you'll consider this opportunity. In phase one, there are two applications that you can submit. So number one, you can submit a strategy development grant application. This is an application to receive some capacity building dollars for your region. And number two, you can submit a Recompete plan approval application. This does not come with any funds, but is the only way to receive permission to apply for phase two funding, where you might receive an implementation award ranging from $20 to $50 million. So when we talk to applicants, some of them ask, I don't know which one to apply for, which one is right for me. So we usually use this framing to help folks understand. So if you're only going to apply for a strategy development award, it means that your region has the relevant ideas, leaders, or assets, but you need to do a little more coordination, planning to even be ready for implementation funding. So you need that capacity building time to build up the capability to actually implement a larger award. Now, those who might apply for recompete plan approval only would say, we're ready to apply for implementation funding. We don't need those additional resources or capacity building dollars to put together a strong phase 2 application. So we're just going to apply for recompete plan approval. And then those who apply for both might say, we have a good understanding of how to address our low prime age employment. We're close to being ready to apply for implementation. We want to go for it this time. However, we could use some additional resources to strengthen our coordination, planning, and phase 2 application development. So we hope that this framing is helpful as you consider which opportunity is right for you. So here's a visual that will help you understand what we're doing here, what the process is like. So as I said, right now, 2 applications are open to everyone. Number 1, strategy development grant applications, and number 2, recompete plan approval application. You all are free to apply for one of these or for both of these. There will be no impact on you if you decide to apply for one or the other or both. They will be evaluated independently. On October 5th, both are due and they will be evaluated, and EDA will select awardees to receive strategy development dollars, and EDA will select approximately 20 finalists who will compete for the larger awards this winter. So again, the only way to pass through to the phase 2 application is to submit a recompete plan for approval. Now, some of you might be saying, well, how can I submit a recompete plan if I'm not ready today? I don't have a fully fleshed plan. Remember that the recompete plan is an initial plan that you submit to us with your vision, with your ideas of what you would do with a larger award. The phase 2 application is when you would update that plan after several months of technical assistance and discussions with our team and other experts. So I want you all to understand that when you put forward your recompete plan for initial approval that would pass you through to the second round, it's not to suggest that anything's set in stone, but we want to have your ideas, your partners, everything that's laid out in the evaluation criteria, that initial vision that gives us confidence that you could compete meaningfully for those larger awards. So very briefly, I just want to talk about the rubrics. As you're thinking about your application, these rubrics should be out in front of you every day. These are how we're going to judge your applications. So make sure you pay close attention to every word in these rubrics. So there are different rubrics for each type of application. The strategy development grants are being evaluated among these 4 criteria. Number 1, regional conditions assessment and preliminary idea of the assets and potential interventions needed. So here we want to have a really good sense that you understand the conditions in your community, the unique conditions that have led to a prime age employment gap, and an initial vision of the interventions that might be needed to close that gap and raise wages in your community. Number 2, what are the proposed strategy development activities that you would engage in? How would you use EDA's dollars to build up the capacity of your region to compete for a larger implementation award? Number 3, organizational and leadership capacity. We really want to know that your organization has the right folks at the table that would execute on this grant, that you've engaged a diverse set of partners, and that we feel that you have a track record of executing. And number 4, efficient and appropriate project budget. So we really want to take a look at your budget, make sure you would be a good steward of federal funds, and that the uses of dollars are effective and would get to the goals of the program. So next, let's talk about the 6 criteria that will be used to evaluate recompete plans. So the first 3 criteria here are going to be worth 15 points, and the next 3 criteria are going to be worth 9 points. So let's start with number 1. Once again, we want to know that you understand your region, the conditions and needs. Number 2, we really want to see that you have a strong strategy and you have high quality potential investments. So how are we going to use these dollars to address the conditions in your region. Number 3, equity, inclusivity, and diversity. How are you making sure that underserved communities are engaged and included in the design of this intervention? And how are you making sure that the interventions will reach underserved communities? Now, we know that the definition of an underserved community or equity will differ depending on which community you're in or which region you're in. We encourage you to speak your truth. Equity means something to everyone, and we want to make sure that you've addressed it in a way that makes sense to your community. So please be sure to do that in your application. Regional assets. We believe that every single community, even the most distressed communities, have assets that they can leverage. We want to be clear about how you're leveraging those assets as part of your Recompete strategy. Number 5, this one's really important, targeted geographic approach. We don't want you to spread these dollars too thin. So while you're free to use any geography you like, as long as they fall under the eligible areas on the map, please make sure that you're pursuing a targeted geographic approach with these dollars. And number 6, partnerships and potential commitments. So whether you apply as a nonprofit, as a government entity, as a university, we want to make sure you have the right partners at the table who are working together to advance your strategy. So we want to see letters of commitment, and it's not about quantity, like Scott said, it's about quality. So make sure that we are able to understand very clearly that the partners at the table are committed to the cause and they're there for the long haul. So now that we've gone briefly over the program, I'm going to go through some of the questions that have come in frequently. Remember, you can get a lot more detail about the program by going to our website, eda.gov/recompete. So as I already discussed, institutions of higher education are largely eligible for this funding. Most public colleges and universities should fall under one of these eligible entities. Political subdivision of a state, so we're thinking your state universities, your state colleges, or a public entity or nonprofit organization. So we're thinking your public universities, your public colleges. So unless you're a for-profit university or college, you should probably be eligible for this program, and we encourage you to apply. Is there a match requirement for strategy development grants? The answer to this is that there is no match requirement for this program. And there will be no match requirement in phase 2, although it will be a competitive factor. So please, we encourage you to apply if you have no match. We want to make this program as accessible as possible to you all. As we develop potential activities that implementation funding could support, what types of activities can be funded through this program? So we've designed this program to be highly flexible. We know that every community is different and is going to require a different set of activities in order to address their prime age employment gap. So we can fund a wide range of non-construction and construction activities with these implementation awards. Generally, we ask folks to fit these into one of these 4 categories: workforce development, business and entrepreneur development, infrastructure, and number 4, additional planning, pre-development, or technical assistance. So we are really looking for your best ideas. Come to us with your innovative, effective, evidence-based ideas that would address your prime age employment gap. The phase 1 strategy development grants period of performance is 18 to 36 months. Does this mean we'll need to complete the strategy development grant if we want to submit a phase 2 application? So this is a question we've been getting a lot. You do not need to finish your strategy development grant in order to apply for implementation funding. We are going to announce the finalists for this competition at the same time that we announce the strategy development award winners, and we're going to release the NOFO in that period as well for phase 2. So we will not be asking folks to finish an 18 to 36 month grant before they apply for phase 2 implementation funding. We'll be asking them to apply for that phase 2 implementation funding soon afterwards. That is, of course, if they were approved to apply for the funding. Now, you can use your strategy development award as a way to improve your recompete plan and to support you as you apply for phase 2 funding. So we hope it will be complementary in that way. Can I submit an application with multiple eligible areas? So some locations might go out and look at the map and see that there are 2 counties right next to each other with an employer that makes sense to work with that is connected to both counties. You're going to design an approach perhaps where you connect folks in both counties to jobs with that employer. That is certainly allowed. You can combine multiple areas. Again, we just want you to consider the fact that a targeted geographic approach is a competitiveness factor for this competition. So please be sure to think about that as you design your strategy. So now I want to talk with you all about Edge. So for those of you who don't know, Edge is the platform that EDA uses for folks to submit grant applications. So if you haven't done it yet, please go on our website and sign up for Edge. I'm going to take you quickly through some steps on how to do this now. So step 1, before you even go into Edge, you need to determine whether your organization is eligible for this program. So make sure you look at the list of eligible entities and consider which one you fall under. Step 2, the lead applicant, whoever is going to sign up in Edge and submit the application, needs to be registered on sam.gov. Now, that does not mean you need to have a CAGE code, but you do need to have a UEI, which you can get by registering on sam.gov today. So please make sure to do this if you haven't already. The process can take some time. So before you do anything else, go to sam.gov and register your organization. Once you've done that, you're ready to sign up for Edge. So you're going to go to the Recompete Pilot Program homepage, and you're going to click Login to create your account. Once you click Login, since you haven't registered in Edge yet, you're going to click Not a Member to create your account. Then you're going to fill in your contact information. And you're going to put in your organization's information. Now, make sure that when you submit your organization's information, you select No if you are registering as the lead. So only select Yes here if you are registering as a member of a coalition. So most of you are just going to be the lead applicant, so you would select No here under organization. You're going to put your organization's name in, address, phone number, and then we need that UEI, which you get from sam.gov. We do not need a CAGE code at this time, as you can see. And then we're going to need your TIN, your tax ID number, otherwise known as your employer identification number. So if you don't have this information, please be sure to get it today. Once you've created your account, you should be able to go to your email, set your password, and log in. So you're going to go to the homepage again, and you're going to log in. Now you should be able to log in. As you can see, I logged in. It says, welcome applicant Leopold Spongellert. Now, if I'm planning on applying as a coalition, I'm going to go and create a coalition before I start my application. Again, most of you will probably apply just as one lead organization, so you don't have to worry about this step. But if you plan on applying as a coalition, make sure to select My Associations, add a new association, make sure you select Coalition, name your coalition, and then finally you have your coalition. You can even add member organizations if they're in Edge already, although this is not required. So now that you're logged in, you've created your association if you're a coalition, you can start your application. You're going to go to My Funding Opportunities. You're going to go to Recompete Pilot Program Phase 1. You're going to click Apply Now. And then you have to select which competition you intend to apply for. Now, remember, these are separate applications. So if you plan on applying to both, you need to start 2 applications. So in this example, we're going to start a strategy development application. You'd have to go through all the steps to start application and then go to the beginning again and start a recompete plan application if you intend to apply for both. So please be sure to do this if you're going to apply to both. Again, it's going to ask you if you're applying as a coalition. Most of you will select no. Some of you will select yes here. If you haven't created a coalition in My Associations, you're going to have to go back and do that at this stage if you're trying to apply as a coalition. You're going to enter a title for your project. Please be careful about this title. We can change it if necessary, but it requires you to email us, and we prefer for you to choose the title that you want at the start. Now you've created your application, but once you create your application, there's only going to be one user that can go in and work on the documents. So let's say I'm working at my organization and my colleague Scott needs to help work on the forms in Edge. I'm going to have to go to application team and add him formally to the application team. So I'm going to click application team. I'm going to click add team member. Now Scott is from my organization, so I'm going to click yes here. If Scott was from a third-party organization, I would click no. I'm going to select team member. I'm going to enter the email that Scott used to sign up for Edge. And then we will approve the request and add this individual to your application. Now, please just give us a little time to make sure we're able to approve these additions. If you are having trouble and you're waiting too long to get someone added, email us immediately and we will resolve the problem. Now, you might need to add someone from an organization outside of your own. In this case, you're going to select no. You're going to select third-party consultant. Please do not select co-applicant. The co-applicant option is for other EDA grant programs, so please select third-party consultant in this case. And then in order to find this third-party consultant, whatever organization they're from, you're going to have to ask them for the tax ID number that they used to sign up. Again, if you're having trouble, email us. You could also email our Edge team at granthdsupport@eda.gov. Again, that's granthdsupport@eda.gov. And then you should be able to find them and add them. Now, this is really important as we head into the application deadline. You will not be able to submit this application until you identify an authorized representative. So no matter who you are, you're going to have to go into application team at some point. You're going to have to add a team member, and you can select yes, and you need to select authorized representative in this case. Enter the email of the authorized representative. If it's yourself, you're going to enter the same email you used to sign up for Edge. And then you should see on this page, authorized representative. So I added myself in this case as the authorized representative. Only I will be able to submit this application. Now for other competitions, we've got people emailing us 3 hours before the deadline saying, why can't I submit the application? 99% of the time it's because they haven't selected an authorized representative. So if you started your application already, I highly recommend you take this step and identify your authorized representative today. Once you've done all that, you've set up your application team, you've identified your authorized representative, you should be able to get started on your application. So click Start, Get Started, and go ahead and start working on those forms. So that's our quick Edge tutorial. Now, one more thing I want to go over today is our eligible and service area template. Some of you may have noticed that we published a new version of our eligible and service area template. Now, this does not mean that the previous template won't be accepted. You can honestly submit any evidence you want of your eligible and service area. However, we updated this template based on feedback that we received from applicants like you to try to make it a little more user-friendly. So I'm going to go over that now. Let me just share it. Okay. And I'm just going to ask my colleague Pam if you can see the spreadsheet that I just shared.
Yes.
Thank you, Pam. Great. So if you go to eda.gov, you should be able to download this spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet is for both strategy development grant applicants and recompete plan applicants. So we want you to use this spreadsheet to let us know, A, which eligible area you're applying with, and B, which service area within that eligible area you will target these investments at. So when you go to the template, what you're going to need to fill out is this green tab here that says eligible and service area. So the first thing we're going to have you do is on each row, identify the type of eligible area that you fall under based on the map. Some of you are going to be local labor markets. Some of you will be tribal areas or Pacific Ocean territories. Some of you will be local communities. And some of you will be applying with census tracts that are within a partially eligible local community. So you're going to fill in one of these. You're going to find the name of the eligible area by going to the map. And then you're going to list the state or territory, or states or territories if there are multiple. So once you've done this, you need to identify the service area within the eligible area that you are targeting. So here, you're going to name that service area. Remember, it must fall within the eligible area you identified in column C. You're going to identify the unit of geography, so a county, a census tract, a city, a town. And then if you have it, we want you to identify the numeric identifier. Perhaps it's a FIPS code or a zip code or a census tract ID. And then just tell us what type of numeric identifier you provided. Again, fill in as much as you can here. What's most important above anything else is that you identify an eligible area, because eligible area is a requirement for this program. But we really also want to know, is there a service area you're targeting within that eligible area? So let me take us through some examples to help illustrate how to use this template. So the first example, example number 1 in yellow here, is an example where there's an applicant who is in an eligible area of an MSA, the Youngstown Warren Boardman MSA, and their service area is going to be a single county within that MSA. So in this case, they're going to only use one row of the template. So first, they list out their eligible area, and then they identify the single county that covers their service area, Trumbull County. So in this case, the unit of geography is a county. The numeric identifier is 39155. And they've explained that this is a county FIPS code. So if I was looking at this application, I would clearly understand that they are in the eligible area of the Youngstown Warren Boardman MSA, and that they are targeting the funds at a single county, Trumbull County, within this MSA. Let's look at another example in green, example number 2. So in this example, we have a eligible area, local labor market commuting zone number 18 in Alaska. But this individual is targeting funds at 2 counties in their service area. So the first row, they're going to identify county number 1. And in the second row, they're going to identify county number 2. So let's take a look at how they did that. So first, they identified their eligible area, which is commuting zone number 18. They identified the state. And then they identified county number 1, which is North Slope Borough. They recognize that this is a county, and they provided the county FIPS code. In row 2, they identified county number 2. They identified the county, and they again provided the county FIPS code. So again, if I'm looking at this as a reviewer of this program, I understand their eligible area is only commuting zone 18, and within that area, they have a service area of these 2 counties. Let's look at 2 more examples, and then we're going to go to the Q&A portion of this office hours. So in the pink, we have example number 3. This example, we have a service area that encompasses the entire eligible area. So there's going to be no difference between the service area and the eligible area, and that's perfectly fine. So in this case, they're targeting a local community, Springfield, Tennessee. So we have the name of the eligible area, Springfield, the state, Tennessee. And then the name of the service area is Springfield, and they've identified it as an incorporated area. And this applicant hasn't provided numeric identifiers, so that's totally fine. So if I'm looking at this, I completely understand the eligible area is Springfield, Tennessee, and the service area is no different. It's Springfield, Tennessee. Now, finally, there are going to be some folks who are in partially eligible local communities. So these are the light blue areas on our map. So in this case, the applicant went to our census tract viewer, and there's a link to that map right here. And they identified the census tracts that are eligible within a partially eligible local community. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tracts being identified. So they use 7 rows to identify each tract. So for each tract, the eligible area is the tract itself within the partially eligible local community of Suffolk County, Massachusetts. So they identified the eligible area, and then the service area is no different. Now there's a possibility that even those who are working on census tracts will identify a service area within a census tract that's even smaller, but I'm sure many of you will say the service area is the same as the eligible area in this. That's completely fine. So in this case, the applicant identified 7 tracts as eligible area and the same 7 tracts as their service area, and this is perfectly fine. And then they identified here the numeric identifier is the tract ID. So if I was looking at this application as a reviewer, I would understand that they are eligible because they identified eligible tracts using our map, and that the service area covers those same tracts. So we hope that this template will be helpful. Remember that this is not a one-size-fits-all. If you want to add a column, if you feel the need to modify it in some way, that's totally fine. Just make sure that it's clear to the reviewer that you are covering an eligible geographic area and what the service area would be within that eligible area or areas. So that concludes the tutorial. Again, I will send this these slides and the template out to everyone who's on this call today. Stop sharing. And now we're going to turn to the office hours portion of today's call. So I'm going to start going through these questions that you've been dropping in the chat. And remember, if I don't get to your question, you can email me at recompete@eda.gov. So somebody asked, just to confirm, the phase 2 implementation grants are $20 million to $50 million per grant. So let me just say a few words about that question. You are correct that we are estimating an average of $20 million to $50 million, but the awards could go below $20 million. They could go above $50 million. These are average estimates, and we hope that you will target your proposals with these averages as a baseline. I also want to remind folks that we are asking applicants to identify 3 to 8 projects that together would form that investment. So it's not that you're proposing a single $20 million project, but a set of 3 to 8 projects that would address the goals of the program and would add up to $20 to $50 million. Remember, though, that you can propose investments that go below 20 million, above 20 million, below 50 million, but you should really assume that those baselines are what will hold you to if you're selected for an award, more or less. Let's see here. Can you clarify if a workforce development board that operates under the authority of a local government is an eligible applicant? Yes, workforce development boards are certainly eligible to apply for this program. Coalition partners can participate in more than one application, correct? Yes, coalition partners are free to participate in more than one application, but we don't want to see you spreading yourself too thin. So please make sure that you are fully committed to any applications you sign yourself up for. Going through this, thank you for your patience. Colin Lewis. We are looking to network the low-income complexes for a program, and it will include several towns in Ocean County, and Toms River was the base. The mapping tool says we are partially approved as a county. We want to start with Lakewood, Jackson, and Toms River. What I would say is if you're partially approved as a county, you just need to make sure that the complexes you're targeting are within the census tracts that are identified as eligible on the map. So really make sure to go to that map and take a look at which areas within your county are eligible for the program. Renee asked, our area is in desperate need of an increase in housing supply so workers can live in the area. Does this grant allow for funding to develop housing? Thanks, y'all. Renee, that's a really good question. It's one that we've gotten from many people. We are not using these funds for the construction of housing. However, you are eligible to use these funds for non-construction purposes related to housing. For example, you could provide potentially housing vouchers to folks who are going through a workforce training program as they go through that program. So we are a bit limited in terms of how we can address your housing needs, but we do encourage you to reach out if you have further questions and to think about how you might integrate other resources to address housing supply, because this program simply can't do everything. Going through this here. My entity open to apply as a sole proprietor that teamed with a union and has an endorsement? David, I would need a little more information about what type of entity you are. As long as you are one of the eligible entities that we listed today, you should be able to apply. And of course, we encourage you to team up with local unions. Would demonstrated entrepreneurship and increased self-employment count towards increased employment rates? Yes. In the Recompete plan, under the 6 elements, element 2, it mentions the track record of the applicant. What would that mean? Like for an ED, would it be track record with other federal grants and programs? It really depends on you to interpret this, but we're looking for a history of success, whether that's working on a federal award, a state award, implementing a program that achieves outcomes. We want to know that your organization has a track record, and we hope you'll interpret that to the best of your abilities. Thank you, Megan, for the question. Does EDA have separate Recompete grants for tribes considering the need? So this program was designed to reach tribes. Actually, all tribal lands are eligible for this program, and we hope that tribes will consider applying. We certainly know that there is a ton of need out there, and we're hopeful that tribes will take this opportunity. There's not a separate Recompete program for tribes, but we encourage you to apply, and please reach out with any questions or any way we can make it as accessible as possible to your community. And that goes for everyone. Will I share the slides? Absolutely. I'll be sure to send you an email with the slides after we hang up today, and I'll send out other resources as well. So thank you for that question. Here we have a question from Gretchen. If there's more than one plan submitted for our region of Ohio, will it impact our own application? Several are interested in applying but are still working through their projects. Does it look bad if more than one organization from our region applies as the lead applicant? I don't think you should worry about that. I think each application will be evaluated on the merits independently. We do encourage you to coordinate with regional partners as it makes sense, but we also understand that one organization will have a different strategy that they want to propose for Ohio, and then maybe another organization has a separate approach, and we'll get two applications. Each will be evaluated on the merits. The only thing I'll say is that this program was designed to achieve geographic diversity. And so that is one of our balancing factors at the end of the day. So we will try to ensure that there is a diversity of geographies in the final pool of those selected. Thank you for the question, Gretchen. So what is the distinction between areas that are eligible versus those that are partially eligible? So this is a good opportunity for me to just pull up a map for a second. So why don't I do that for everyone? And if you're available to stay a little bit past 5, I'm happy to do that so I can keep answering your questions as they come in. So keep them coming. So when you go to the Recompete map, you're going to see a bunch of areas that are yellow or orange, a bunch of areas that are dark blue, and a bunch of areas that are light blue. So the orange areas are local labor markets that are eligible for the program. Local labor markets, in order to qualify, need to have a prime age employment rate that is at least 2.5 percentage points below the national average. So here, if we look at commuting zone 393 in New Mexico, the prime age employment rate, see if I can zoom a little. Oops. Sorry, everyone. Technical difficulties. All right, let's look at this example. So in this micropolitan statistical area, the prime age employment rate is 61.85. This is approximately 16.54% below the national average, and therefore this local labor market is eligible, fully eligible. And you could target your service area to any area within this micropolitan statistical area. Now, there are some places that are going to have dark blue shading. These are local communities that are eligible for the program. So local communities are counties or towns or cities usually that are within a local labor market that is ineligible, but the county itself meets the criteria laid out in the law. So in this case, a local community needs to have a gap of 5 percentage points or more and needs to have a median income that is less than $75,000. So in this case, Eureka County in Nevada has a employment gap of 7, which means it is eligible, it's greater than 5, and the median income is $68,307, which is below $75,000, and so this entire county is eligible. Finally, you're going to see some local communities that are shaded light blue. So let's take a look at this area here. Why don't I zoom? Great. So let's look at Denver, Colorado. So when you click on Denver, Colorado, Denver County, you'll see that it is partially eligible. What does this mean? It means that the prime age employment rate of the entire county or the median income do not meet the criteria. However, if we go further in and zoom in to Denver, there are areas that meet the criteria for local communities. So in this case, you're going to want to copy and paste this URL to take a look at our census tract viewer. This will give you a better view of which areas within Denver County are eligible. So I'm just going to go over to the census tract viewer. And I'm going to enter Denver County. And then if I zoom in here, I see the communities where there are eligible census tracts. So there are two groupings of census tracts that are eligible in Denver. So if this person were to apply, they would have to simply target their investments at these neighborhoods. And if you need to download the data, you click on this arrow, you click options, and you can export these to a CSV. So that's the difference between a partially eligible community and a fully eligible local community. Partially eligible communities have pockets of census tracts that meet the criteria that were provided by Congress, whereas fully eligible local communities, you could target the entire county or the incorporated place. I'm going to stop sharing. Hope that was somewhat helpful. Go back to the questions. All right. Can a tribe be both an applicant and a coalition member of another applicant? Absolutely, yes, this is allowed. Can font size be smaller in the grant narrative for the list of sources being cited? We generally encourage you to use 12-point font throughout the application. Is this ARPA funding? No, the funding for this program came through the annual appropriations process last year, and the program itself was created by the CHIPS and Science Act. For those of us who are considering just applying for the strategy development grants, will there be another opportunity to submit for phase 2 implementation after this one? John, that's an excellent question. It really depends on Congress. So we have no guarantee today that Congress will provide additional implementation funds for this program. We hope so. But if you are interested in potentially competing for implementation funding, we do encourage you to not take a chance and apply today for recompete plan approval. So the answer is we'll have to see about additional rounds. Chris has a question. Is there a restriction on working with populations below the age of 25, i.e. career tech ed high school programs? If a justification is made to demonstrate the intervention will reduce the PEG. Chris, absolutely, you are allowed to propose such interventions. You hit it right in the head. Just make sure that it is clear why your strategy would help reduce the prime age employment gap and raise prime age wages in your area and lead to general economic growth in your region. So remember also that when you're proposing interventions, you don't have to propose just one. You can propose a set of 3 to 8 EDA projects that together address the PEG. So it's possible that one of these projects targets one age group and one of these projects targets another age group. We really defer to you on your strategy, but just make sure that you keep the North Star of this program in mind, which is reducing the prime age employment gap. Thank you for the question, Chris. And really, please email me at recompete@eda.gov. We will be trying to answer those questions even quicker in the final month here. So just send us an email. If we don't respond soon enough, ping us. We will try to get back to you as quickly as possible. Our goal is to provide top-notch customer service to you all. Does the budget narrative in the strategy development plan count towards the 5-page limit? No, the budget is a separate required document. Gretchen here says, what TTA is available to develop strategy for round 2 funding? Could we include funding for strategic development in round 1 to prepare for a round 2 application? I'm not sure if I fully understand your question, Gretchen, but yes, you certainly could use round 1 funding to help prepare your implementation application. David, how can I get my initial plans reviewed to commit? David, we can't really review your initial plans as a matter of fairness, but we do encourage you to get a second pair of eyes on them before you submit. Can our service area comprise more than one labor market? Does our service area have to include every county in the labor market? These are great questions. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, you can definitely include more than one labor market, and the service area could, for example, be one county in one labor market and another county in another labor market. We defer to you on giving us an approach that makes most sense to your community. Is this a reimbursement grant, or will there be an opportunity to receive an advance of funds? Gretchen, great question. I am not sure if we've made a final decision on that at this time. Probably be more information on that when the phase 2 notice of funding comes out. Another question here. We are submitting both applications. Can the letters of commitment from our partners outline a specific plan or specific outcomes at this stage before we spend the first few months establishing goals? I think that sorry, everyone. Hello? Hey, it's me. Hi, I'm still on the webinar. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry, everyone. So I would say that quality is really important here. So we want to see that you have committed partners at this stage. It does not mean that your entire plan needs to be completely fleshed out, but we want to see that you've brought the right partners to the table, that you have a shared vision. And then we also understand that in the months leading up to the implementation submission, that your plans might change. The phase 1 award a multi-year award? If so, for how many years? So we are allowing folks to propose awards from 18 to 36 months of activities. So it can go up to 3 years or 1.5 years. On the website, third-party affiliates are not populating, as well as many members of my union will be helping lead the collaboration and negotiating for phase 2. David, why don't you just send us a note with the specific issue you're facing, and I'll try to resolve it. Matt said we would like to pursue funding for a strategy grant. Should we discuss potential solutions in our application, even though the funded project would provide definitive answers on the strategy to undertake? Yes, please discuss potential solutions, your initial vision, even though we understand that this capacity building award would help you further develop that vision. Jennifer, just want to confirm that we could combine an application to include infrastructure and workforce development. Yes, you could propose multiple projects. Maybe one of those projects is more focused on infrastructure and another is more focused on workforce development. Or maybe there's a single project that's focused on both. These are both allowable. Can you clarify the timeline? When is the announcement and phase 2 NOFO expected? How long will areas have to spend the phase 2 financial awards? Thank you for that question. We expect to make the announcement and phase 2 NOFO release this winter. And then we expect the phase 2 awards to last up to 5 years, but in some cases less. If the scope of work for the strategic planning grant includes developing the Recompete plan, when would we be able to submit the plan for approval? If it is approved, when could we submit for implementation funding? So this is what's a bit confusing about the wording of these. While you would be using strategic planning grant to build up your capacity, we expect anyone who's eligible to submit for implementation to submit concurrently. So while you will still be receiving dollars for your strategic planning grant, you would be expected to put in a bid for implementation dollars. Do the partners identifying the Recompete plan need to participate in strategy development? No, I think that you need to identify the partners that make sense for both. In some cases, you might decide that there are different partners that are going to be relevant to the implementation activities versus the partners that would be working with you on your strategy development activities. We would just want to see a clear rationale for the partners you've chosen. Mara just asked about the RPC, which is the Recompete Plan Coordinator. Does it need to be a W-2 employee, or can they be a contractual employee? So just for those of you who might not be as aware, the Recompete Plan Coordinator is a hired position that we we want to ensure every single finalist has. So we want you to have that one person who kind of serves as the CEO of your initiative. So please be sure to identify that person the best of your ability, or a plan to identify that person. They could be either a W-2 employee or a contractual employee. I don't think there would be any problem with that. Can a for-profit business apply for this initiative? No. However, we do encourage firms to be partners on this initiative. For example, you might have a nonprofit that forms a sector partnership to train folks in your region, and many employers would be partners as part of that initiative. So if you're a partner in a coalition but not the lead, do you still need to register an EDGE? No, only the lead needs to register an EDGE. If you want, as the lead, to add members of your coalition, you can by going to the My Associations tab. But we really just ask you to, in your application, identify your partners. Only the lead needs to go through the registration process in EDGE so they can submit the application. Can we submit an MOU for the coalition for phase 1 as the letter that describes, sorry, I lost it, the lead organization's role, or do you want a separate letter from the lead org? An MOU would be fine, certainly. Can our nonprofit sign up for EDGE even though we are not the lead nonprofit who would be getting the funding, however, partnering on the grant? Yeah, Colin, your nonprofit could sign up. But you would want the lead to be the one that submits the application. Chris asked, are the IDC costs included within the total budgets, i.e. up to 500,000 for strategy or 20 million for plan, or are those figures indicative of total allowed direct costs with indirect above and beyond? Given that there is no match required for this program, you could go all the way up to those dollar amounts. Will a copy of the recording be shared with participants? Yes. Can you distinguish between matching and in-kind? Matching is not required, but yet is part of the competitive process. Did you mean in-kind as opposed to matching? We're going to have more information on this in the phase 2 NOFO. Remember that this is not even a competitive factor for phase 1. So we're going to provide more detail on this in the phase 2 NOFO when it comes out for those of you who are going to compete for implementation dollars. For now, I wouldn't really worry about it. But feel free to identify match or in-kind in your phase 1 application if you so choose. Is external evaluation required for Recompete? Not sure what you mean by that, Christine, but I will say that we are going to have external independent evaluators for your applications. And this is detailed in the NOFO. Can you apply for a strategy grant, but then decide later whether or not you want to apply for a Recompete plan grant? No, you need to apply now for both if that's what you want to pursue. As I said, we're not sure if there are going to be future funding rounds for implementation dollars. So now is the time to apply for both if you are interested in both. Can strategy development applications include funding for proposed implementation activities? For example, a pilot? Yes, definitely. Great question. Can I share that email again? Recompete@eda.gov is our inbox, and then the EDGE email is granthdsupport@eda.gov. But just email us at recompete@eda.gov, and we can always connect you with the EDGE team if that's necessary. So recompete@eda.gov. Is Edge where all the reporting will also be done, similar to other federal grant portals? Yes, Rachel, that's the plan. That's what EDA has been moving towards. Kelly said, is the deliverable for strategy development grant an actual recompete plan that follows NOFO guidelines, or can it be some other type of plan related to recompete goals? So the deliverables are really about you raising your capacity to achieve the recompete goals. So it's not just a deliverable of a recompete plan, but raising the deliverables would be agreed upon between you and EDA in a manner that best achieves your capacity building objectives. Another question here, where is the area's associated identifier found? For example, FIPS code. You should be able to find the identifier online. Remember, we defer to you on which numeric identifier you want to use. This is just to help us best identify your service area. So it's not required, but if you do have it handy, please include it. Colin asked, is there a requirement in phase 1 to detail outcomes? For example, number of employers served, number of people placed into jobs? No, but we do want you to provide an initial vision. So to the extent that you feel that's appropriate to achieve the competitiveness factors in the NOFO, please do that. But remember, in phase 2, we would ask for more detail. So folks asked, how do I get to the map from Recompete, from the Recompete homepage on EDA? So why don't I just show y'all? So when you go to eda.gov, you'll see a page that looks like this. You're going to want to go to Find Open Funding and click Recompete. This will take you to the Recompete homepage. Again, you can also just go to eda.gov/recompete. And then you're going to go down to the resources. Here you're going to find the mapping tool, and you can just click on the mapping tool. And that will take you to our map. And all the resources, including videos of previous webinars, slides, and some of our templates and guides are available here on the resources. Okay, I'm going to have some time to take a few more questions, and then those of you who did not have their question answered, remember we're going to have another office hours in 2 weeks, or you can email me at recompete@eda.gov. Can there be a change in lead agency between proposals? For example, if one organization is awarded a strategy development grant, can a different agency apply for designation? Nicole, this would be a case-by-case basis, so maybe you should send the scenario to our inbox. Can a state agency be named as lead applicant, coalition member, or subawardee? Yes. Still going through some questions here. Can K through 12 strategies be considered? Again, just think about how to articulate whether it will achieve the goals of the program. Not all coalition members need to be on Edge. Absolutely not. Only the lead needs to be on Edge. I'm going through these questions. Is there any conflict of interest concerns in using parts of the Hydrogen Hub application from DOE for Recompete? I don't see why that would be a problem as long as you feel that the sections are tailored to the Recompete program. What is the preferred source of data used to demonstrate the economic conditions of our service area, or are we supposed to solely use what's provided in the eligibility map? Great question, Susie. We don't have a preferred source of data. You should use the source of data that makes most sense, and you should feel free to go beyond the data provided by our eligibility map in order to help us understand the economic conditions. For example, you might provide data on poverty rate, or you might provide employment by certain demographic group. There are so many different ways that you can help us understand the conditions in your region. Are there specific requirements regarding number of jobs created or other metrics around prime age employment gap that you were expecting will be reached as a result of implementation grants? No. Every project is going to be specific to the region. So we're going to ask you to help us understand what makes most sense. Can you give an example of the degree of specificity when you're looking for when it comes to target populations, geographies, strategies? Can't give a specific example. I think that the NOFO itself will probably help you understand what we're looking for here. Sorry if that's not helpful enough, but just as a matter of fairness, we'd like you to just use the NOSIP funding opportunity guidance here. Can private industry be part of a coalition? Should they just be partners? Yeah, at this stage, they need to be just partners because they're not an eligible entity. So I wouldn't worry too much about the difference also between a coalition versus having partners. As long as the lead applicant is applying as an eligible entity, we're going to be looking very closely at the partners, whether they are formally part of a coalition or they are formally recognized as partners through your letters. We are a national nonprofit serving as a lead entity for 2 separate strategy grants in 2 separate eligible areas. How do we submit multiple applications of each type on EDGE? You would just need to start 2 applications in EDGE and submit them both. If you have trouble, Veronica, shoot me an email. Happy to help. Can implementation funds be used for any construction? No, make sure they fall under the categories in the NOFO. As I said earlier, they can't be used to build affordable housing, for example. Is there a preference for a coalition versus one applicant with a partner or an applicant with many commitment letters? Thank you, Chelsea. There's no preference here. You should do what makes most sense to you. Those are effectively the same in our mind. Do those applying for work in tribal areas need to submit resolutions if they are not the tribe? Susanna, good question. I don't know the exact answer right now. Shoot us an email and I'll definitely get you the answer. Can you repeat what non-construction purposes funds can be used for? Non-construction funds could be used for housing vouchers, for example, for folks going through workforce training, activities like that. What about using the funds to develop large area of land for building of several new structures that will have businesses? Yeah, that type of development should be allowed. Of course, everything's going to be judged on a case-by-case basis. And you would have to comply with, federal grant requirements and regulations. Susan, I'm not sure if I know what a ANVSA is at this time. So if you can just send me an email, I will be happy to answer this question. What other types of nonprofits are eligible to apply beyond educational institutions? Really any nonprofit. We have, for example, under the Jobs Challenge here at EDA, we have a nonprofit, United Way of Central Iowa. They're working with us. We have nonprofit Unidos US working with us. So any types of nonprofits are eligible. How long is the period of performance for phase 2 projects? Approximately 5 years. Can you provide an example for Pacific territories? Yeah, the entire territory of Guam, for example, is eligible. Tessa asked, can you explain the benefit submitting as a coalition versus a single applicant? There really isn't a benefit. If you submit as a single applicant, we just ask that you identify your partners formally. If you apply as a coalition, you also might have partners that aren't formally part of the coalition that you have formed. It's really up to you. We just want to see that you have the right partners and commitments at the table. We anticipate changes to the timeline for this program at this time? No, we don't. How do we determine if we're eligible to apply for 20 million or 50 million? Usually, actually, it's pretty clear the local labor markets, so the orange on the map, are eligible for 50 million, and the local communities are eligible for 20 million. A few more questions. Can we use single space format? Yes. Here's a good question. What is the definition of a project that would constitute one of the 3 to 8? Is it any intervention that directly or indirectly improves the page wages, or is it specific to connected to jobs? In other words, do programs that target antecedents to lower page count towards the 3 to 8? Yeah, any of your projects are going to count towards the 3 to 8. If you're not sure what a distinct project looks like, go to eda.gov, take a look at some of our projects. It will help you understand like what a single concrete EDA project looks like. And shoot me an email if you're still confused. One thing that might help is if you look at our Build Back Better Regional Challenge winners. They've used this model of 3 to 8 projects, and so this would be similar for you all, where we would have 3 to 8 concrete EDA grants that add up to 20 or 50 million together and are taken together as the strategy to achieve your goals to reduce the pay and raise wages. So John, that's a really good question, and feel free to email if that was unclear. How can I get connected with potential collaborators within our area? You should get in touch with your economic development representative. So go to eda.gov/contact us. Contact, I'm not sure. Go to about, and go to contact. Yeah, eda.gov/contact. And then you should be able to find your economic development representative who might be able to help you. There is no max indirect rate for this grant. Any indication when the phase 2 NOFA will be released? This winter around the same time that we announced the phase 1 finalists. Do we need a CD 511? I believe yes, you do. If not construction, can funds be applied for repurposing? Remember, funds can be used for construction phase 2. It's just that they can't be used for housing. So I just want to be clear about that. Okay, I think I got through most of these questions. Again, if I missed your question, please shoot me an email at recompete@eda.gov. I want to thank you all for attending this webinar, and I want to remind you that we'll have another office hours webinar in 2 weeks on Wednesday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Thank you again for attending, and I hope you have a good evening.